Crushing the meta.
A big welcome to our channel. We are Team Crushing the Meta, and today we're here for you guys with another video, and this time we will talk about Deletors. So, in this video we're going to talk about Deletors and the hate that is or was or still is created against Deletors, and we will talk about that. Long ago, about a year ago, we created a video to talk about the hate toward Time Leap in that time. That was the time that Time Leap had their biggest, when they had like the big four or the big five, whatever you want to call it, like the Melon with Orwatar and History Maker, Tuk Tuk Worker, Metallica Phoenix, and they could set the whole combo up, attack, and then draw cards and create advantage out of attacking. So creating advantage out of advantage. Nowadays, there are some decks that could destroy meta, and one of these decks is actually Deletors, while Deletors being now a meta deck and not a meta destroyer. So this video will talk about Deletors, but also the hate that was created versus Deletors. So let's take a look at the words. 2 years ago, Ripples won, and a year ago, 7 Seas won. Both of those decks were actually not meta, and they were just decks that could work really good against the meta. But both decks are decks that were created so that your opponent cannot play their game. Ripples stay at grade 2 so your opponent can't stride, can legion, can do nothing, and you'll rewrite so he can't use a Sea Breeze. Grade 1 7C stays on grade 1 so he cannot activate his GB skills, and that was the only deck that could really keep up against Gear Chronicle in that time. But actually it was so good that it destroyed every other deck, because it was really good but stay at grade 1 and still win. And now we have Deletors. So before I give you my opinion, let's go to Deletors and talk a little bit about the deck. If you haven't seen JD's deck profile yet, you could go to our channel and watch JD's profile. In the profile, we also showed you the big combo that you could do with the deck, as you can see right here. And also, we have talked about the ban list in Crushing the Meta, Crazy Game Changing, episode 4. We've talked about the GRs, and we talked about what could Bushiroad do. These are our thoughts about what could Bushiroad do. These are not our thoughts that we want Bushiroad to do. So there are two different things. For me, I don't want Bushiroad to do anything. They should haven't even created the ban list and let everybody play everything there is. But there are some things in there that are not healthy. Like you can't put Refrost to 4 to be logical, because if you do, there are some crazy loops that you could do with more than one Refrost, especially with as fast as Angel Feathers now is, that could just make a crazy loop. The same is actually with Raven. That's why Raven is also on the list in our opinion, or should be on the list. But yeah, let's go to Deletors and talk about it. So I have made the deck in Cardfight area, and if you haven't seen the deck profile yet, as I said from JD, you could go there and you could watch it. But let me show you the deck as I made it. So look at this crazy background. But yeah, let's go to test, and let's show you the deck that I created. So this is what we have with us right here, and let's take a look at the deck. So this is the deck that I created. I put 4 of the starter in here. If you don't know what he does, you could just pause the video and read him. This is one of the cards that makes this deck so good. 8 stands, one of them that draws you card if their Vanguard is deleted, and one of them that calls units and gives them extra 5k. We'll talk about them in a minute. Then 4 heals, there's nothing. Critical trigger with also a skill, but not really very important. Then we have 4 of the PG, could give power, but also not the most important. 10k attackers, very important actually. Striders, and could search you the right card if needed. They could come to the field. They're not searchers, they come to the field. And then we have a tech card, could be anything. You could play 1, you could play 2, you can play 7, whatever you want. depend on how much grade 2s that you want, grade 1s that you want to play. I think most people would play 13 if they're playing so much starters. Then we have Given, of course, at 4, the Caller Evo at 2, and then you could play any of these. You can play the 12k attacker, you can play the Legion Mate to lock the front row, and you can play the one that put pressures on your opponent. Both of them are very good. This card deletes. If your opponent has a deleted Vanguard, you can lock anything in the front row. So one of the cards that your opponent would not expect playing against Deletors, because Deletors normally do not really lock in the pre-stride turns. Even when they stride, they don't really have a stride that really locks. It's more about deleting than locking. And this card is also very interesting. So it's a counterblast of 1. Have to be a deleter, so special counterblast. If your opponent has a deleted Vanguard until the end of turn, this unit get 2k, so it's 11k attack, which is perfect to hit your opponent 0 or 11k if they are not deleted. But only works if your opponent has a deleted Vanguard, so their Vanguard has to be deleted. And when this unit attacks hits a Vanguard, your opponent has a grade 3 Vanguard. So this is important. This card only works if your opponent has a grade 3 Vanguard. Your opponent cannot stride during their next stride phase. So what happens is that if this unit hits, your opponent cannot stride. So that's also very important to keep in mind, that this card has a very strong hit ability. And then we have their new grade 3, which I think is also has a small flaw, which I will tell you later. And then we have any other grade 3 that you want to play. Some people play the Legion because they play the Legion Mate, could work. Some people play him because he could also lock in the front row, so that's very nice. And people do not expect him. And people could play the old one as well. But actually, more importantly, this card is the card that you want to ride. So let's say that we have our starter. Shuffle the deck. Draw 5 cards. So this is what your hand would look like. Well, this stand is really good. We could keep it. You have a grade 2, which is perfect. It's given. We put the heal back and we put the crit back. And let's say we keep the stand in hand and hope to get a grade 3. We're gambling on this one, but it's alright, just to show you the combo. So we draw a grade 1 and the crit. We don't have a grade 3 yet. So this is just a stride fodder. It's also worked before striding. So no GB skill. Now, it's our turn because we had to go first because we're very lucky and we had everything we need. We draw the right grade 3. So, from here on, you actually won the game. I'll show you how. You ride into any of your grade 1s. Doesn't really matter. Keep this one hand because maybe you would stride. But you could also do it differently. You could also ride into this one because you know that you can finish your opponent before striding. And you can keep this one in hand for later, just to use his skill later on. So that's actually it. You end your turn and your opponent goes. Let's say that your opponent rides into the grade 1. So let's say they ride into the grade 1 and they attack you. Let's shuffle the deck and you take damage. So 1 damage. Then it's your turn. You draw. You have the right grade 2 because you don't want to ride him. So that's perfect. You ride into the grade 2. From here on, you could pressure your opponent for more, or you could just keep this card in hand. I would pressure my opponent. Why? Because I also play stands. So we could also put it right like this. Could also work. Just pressure them even more. It depends which deck you're playing against. So let's say that you do it like this. And remember, they are now at grade 1. So you could call the stand, which would make this a very good column. From here, you know that you play stand trigger, so you took 12 on their Vanguard. So they could take or guard. So let's say they guard this one. Then you attack with this. They will let this one through. You get a stand trigger. Perfect. I'm not even making this up. I mean, this is how the deck would work. Really. So you get a stand trigger, they take 1 damage, then you attack 1 more, and they take 2 damage. So they are now at 2 damage. Normally, they could also guard this one, but normally they are at 2 damage. You end your turn. It's their turn. They ride into the grade 2. Let's say that they call something else. They attack this one. Well, let it die. Then they attack your Vanguard. no guard, drive check or damage check. This one, let's say they got a critical, but they don't want to give the critical to the finger because they want to do you not much damage, or they do you the damage, so you have 3 damage. The combo also work if you have 1 damage, which I will show you. So then it's your turn, and that's actually your final turn. Your opponent's already at 2 or 3 damage, normally at 3 because you did pressure them a little bit. So you ride into him. Now let's read him. He has 2 skills. The first skill is when your G unit with Deletor in its card name or original card name, just write, reveal the top card of your deck, blah blah blah, call it, blah 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 blah. It doesn't matter. Stride skill is not even important in this case. The first skill is Counterblast 1, which is a Deletor. Choose 2 of your Vanguards with Deletor in their card name and retire them. Delete all of your opponent's Vanguards. So, the cards that you actually, if you have enough Counterblasts, the card that you actually want to retire are not your starter, not yet. If you already have something that could fill up your field, don't use the starter yet. So you know that you will call given anyway, and this would make a 14k column, so not important, so you could call him right there. And then this is the stand that when it's placed, if your opponent has a deleted Vanguard, you can use it. So that's not the stand that you will call yet, because you want to delete their Vanguard first. So you could call this unit. Now let's read his skill. Put this unit in the top of your deck at the end of turn battle, or at the end of the battle, boosted, blah 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 blah, Vanguard, you may pay the cost of it. Not important, we're not going to use it. You activate your Vanguard skill, which is a counterblast of 1, the first skill. And now you choose 2 of your Vanguards with Deletor in the card name and retire them. So could you retire him and him, or if you really have only 1 counterblast to work with, you retire him and the starter. Could also work. So let's say you retire these 2 and you delete your opponent's Vanguard. This card will go to the drop zone and your starter skill will activate. When this unit is retired from the Vanguard, by effect or cost of one of your cards, your opponent has a deleted Vanguard. Yes, he has, because you just deleted it. And look at the top card of your deck, call it to Vanguard. If the called card was Deletor in its original card name, put the card of blah 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 and countercharge 1. So as I said, let's say we only had 1 counterblast to work with. You activate the starter skill by revealing the top card, which is a Deletor. You call it, and then this card will go into the soul and you countercharge 1. This will go to the drop zone. Now, you have already a free call from your starter and a countercharge, so you have enough counterblasts to use your skill. So the other 2 damage don't really matter, because this is the only damage that you need. Now you call, activate the skill. When this unit is placed on Vanguard, if you have a Vanguard with Deletor in its card name and your opponent has deleted Vanguard, yes, everything is right. You draw a starter. This is devastating. This field right here is already devastating. And as I said, I'm not even making this up. This is the first time that I ever played this deck, actually. So you may call this unit or you may call this one to draw, but this is perfect. You don't need anything else. This is a 15k column right here. This is a 14k column, but you don't want to attack with him yet. So you go to the battle phase. Remember, your opponent is at 2 damage, and let's say that he has like 5 or 6 cards in hand. Let's say 6. Their Vanguard is deleted. So you attack with 15k to their Vanguard. That's a 20k shield right there. So they have to drop at least 2 cards to stop this. So let's say they drop 2 cards. They're left with 4 cards in hand. Now you attack with your Vanguard, another 15k. They would have to leave this one through. So let's say they say no guard. Drive check, nothing. Drive check, nothing. It's okay, no problem. Then you attack with this, 14k to their Vanguard. What would they do? Let's say they guard this with another, let's say they took 1 damage, so they are at 3. And they got a trigger, so they are at 5, so they guard this with 1 card. They're left with 3 cards in hand. Now you activate his skill, counterblast of 1, and then retire your whole field. So this one dies, he dies, and these 2 die as well, but we'll leave them right here, and you restand your Vanguard. Now you activate both skills. So his skill first, when this unit is retired from the Vanguard, the effect of one of your cards, look at the top card. If it's a Deletor, you call it and give it an extra 5k. So you call a starter, you give it an extra 5k. And then you activate the starter skill. So you reveal the top card, you call it, and this unit gets an extra 3k because it's a 10k attacker when it's attacked the Vanguard. And then this card skill activate, it goes to the soul, and you get the counter charge back, and this goes to the drop zone. Your opponent left with 3 cards in their hand and they have 3 damage. Now you attack with this. We already gave it the extra 3k. So this is at least 1 card for them to guard. So let's say they have a 10k, they are left with 2 cards in hand. Then you attack with your Vanguard, 11k to their 5k. They are 3 damage, so let's say they had let this one through. First, nothing. A critical trigger, that's 2 damage for your opponent. They're left with 2 cards in hand, and they are already at 5 damage, and they have to use the 2 cards to stop this attack. And this is how a deleted turn look like. So, what could you do about it, and why is this unfair? The unfair thing is that you could do this before your opponent could go to the grade 3. So this is your pre-stride turn. This is before striding, and this is your opponent left with the grade 3. So where did this deck go wrong? Well, you have 2 things. The calling units, so actually these 2, the starter and the stand trigger. These 2 units call when they retire, and that's a big mistake. Why? Because they created him. Because they created him, you can attack more by retiring them during your battle phase. But he doesn't retire during battle phase. Who does? Well, it's Given. So whose fault is it? Is it Given's fault? Yes, actually it is. But what could you do about it? Well, you can't, because it's not only his fault, because he normally works only with grade 3s. So that's alright. So it's actually left between, let's remove this, or just leave it like this. So it's actually between these 3. These actually are the 3 cards. This could also search them out, but doesn't matter. These actually are the 3 or 4 cards that are the problem for deleters. The stand, the starter, because as I showed you, you only need 1 counterblast if you already have him as your starter. To do your whole combo, you need only 1 counterblast. And you could always get the counterblast for him back with the starter to use his skill. And of course, him. So these 4 cards are actually the problem. There are different things that Bushiroad could do about this. 1, they could make his skill, so the grade 3 skill, GB. So if his first skill was GB2 or GB1, you could not do this before your opponent goes to grade 3. That's 1. So that would mean that you can't delete your opponent's Vanguard. Not this easy. You cannot use the Legion, because you cannot Legion if your opponent is not at grade 3 yet. So let's say, which options do we have? Well, I've put the other 2 grade 3s in this deck as well. So he is one of the cards that could delete. And where's the other grade 3? This one. So look at this. This is a grade 3 that could lock, but the Counterblast 2 and choose a regular deleter card is just too much, because it's Counterblast 2. And that could be a heavy cost, but it could work. So this works. This doesn't work because it's a Legion. So let's put these 2 right here. So all of these 3 before striding. But he is the most powerful of them all, because he costs you only 1 counterblast. And he retires a unit, which is this card, so it could give you the counter charge. So that would mean that by having only 1 damage, which doesn't matter which one it is, you could reuse the damage multiple times to activate his skill and his skill. So that's actually the problem. So what could Wishra do about it? As I said, they could make the deleting mechanic. You could only delete if your opponent is at grade 3, like Legion. That could work. Why not? Second thing is, they could make the deleting skill GB restricted, so like GB1 or GB2, so you can't delete if your opponent is not at grade 3. They could put the starter at 1, and cannot be used as a starter could also work, would make the deck way less consistent and way less playable. And they would not do anything about the starter, or they could just put Given at 1, or just take him out, or you can't play him with a Deleter deck. I don't know, but I would not think that they would do that. So these are the options that Bushiroad could do to stop this deck, to not be another kind of 7Cs Grade 1 deck. What's my opinion? My own opinion. My own opinion is actually something very, very, very different. And that is, when playing against Deletors, just do the same way that you play against Blasters. So, as you saw that when I went into the Great One, I called another Great One, so don't give them the damage. Maybe give them only one counterblast. Okay, they only need one counterblast. Kill the rearguards if you can. If you can, then sometimes just don't attack to their Vanguard. Lose a drive check. But if they don't have the one counterblast, they cannot use their skills to make your Vanguard delete. They cannot delete your Vanguard if they don't have the counterblast. So there are different ways to not give them counterblast. You can sometimes not attack, that could work. Most of the time you have a PG in your deck, and your PG is a 6k, and mostly they would ride into something which is a 7k. So you could ride your PG in the most situations. Let's take it out and ride it. You could ride in your PG, so your field would look like this. In your first turn playing against Deletors, not with Deletors. So you have your starter, let's say you call behind your Vanguard, and you attack with your Vanguard. If you drive check a trigger, you give the trigger to the rearguard, which is your starter, which you have on the field. So 6k to the 7k doesn't do damage, but you did draw the card that you need to defend with, because you will definitely get a lot of attacks into you. So this is a strategy that this could work. It does work for me, but I also play Spike Brothers, which is a deck that could finish the opponent off even if they are at 0 damage. So it does work for me. And then in this situation, what would they do? Well, the thing that they would do in most situations is that when they see you not attacking them or not doing the damage, they will rush you. So that would mean they will call at least an extra rearguard. While they call an extra rearguard, it's your turn. So let's say this is your hand, or it's a really bad hand to. Yeah, well, let's say that this is your hand. It's all right. You ride into the grade 2 because you want to ride as fast as you can, because they delete anything. Doesn't really have to be a grade 2 or grade 1. And then let's say you call something, or 2 things even. And now, let's say you call only one. You attack. This should, in most situations, be a grade 2, the card that you call. Why? Because you want to be able to intercept with it all the way. So you attack 16 to the rearguard, and you drive check. Nothing. They retire the rearguard. And now you don't have to attack the finger, just leave your like this. If they have another rearguard, absolutely kill the rearguard. But you don't have to give them damage. Don't give them damage. Then it's their turn, they don't have any damage, so they will call 3 more units, and they cannot delete you anymore because they don't have damage, so they can't do the whole combo. And then they attack you multiple times, so let's say that you're already at 4 or 5 damage. That's alright, but you didn't really lose a lot of hand, and they could only do 3 attacks, maybe 4 if they get a stand trigger, but that's it, and you're still at 9, so it's guardable. Then it's your turn, you're already at 4 damage, and you ride into the grade 3, and you discard and you stride. And when you stride, you can make the pluses, and then when it's their turn, they have 2 options. They have the option to go to the G zone, and their G zone would look like this in the most situations. They have him and their G zone at 4 for now, and they in the new set they will get the new stride. They play him at 2 or at 3. They still play Big Crunch. They play Messiah for the for the match against Deletors, and sometimes they play GBH, sometimes they don't. But these 4 or even 3, because he is not always played, but let's say 4, especially this one, is actually the only go-to strat that they have. So, and what it does is actually just delete your Vanguard, and it doesn't need counterblasts. So this is actually the card that they go to in most situations, and it does give power, so that's really good. But Actually, it's all about deleting your Vanguard, and from there you did make some pluses. You can use your G-Guardians, you could destroy their field, everything will do their course. So this was actually a way to learn how Deletors work and how you could play against it. I hope that this video did help you guys a little bit, and the only thing that I want to say to you guys is actually stop hating Deletors and try to get ways to work around it. We know, and Bushiroad knows, that they created some kind of a monster that could finish you off. As I just showed you, I shuffled my deck the whole time, I just drew the cards, and I showed you how consistent is Deletors. For even somebody like me who never played the deck, but I know how the deck works. So it's actually really cheesy and easy. So everybody could make this deck, which is really not that expensive, and could play this deck, and it's strong enough to kill any other deck. Me, myself, I know how to play against it, and I never really lose against Deletors. Maybe I lost once in the 16 or 17 or 20 matches that I played. But in the most situations, you could lose against Deletors if they go first, because they have the perfect hand, and you cannot do anything about it. The only way to win against it, it does not give them damage. The same way when you play against blasters. When blasters play, if they have one counterblast, that's enough for them. The counterblast will help them. They could countercharge that. They could use it for everything. They could countercharge it again, and Deletors does the same, because they still have their starter, which is played as starter, so they could give the countercharge back and call more units. So that's actually it for this video. I really hope that this video helped you out. For the deleting players that play Deletors, you could also learn from this video, because as I showed you, when you use the skill of your grade 3, do not retire your starter right away, only if you really need the counterblast, but in the most situations, do not retire him yet, so you have more. Like the Stand Trigger and the Starter are the two cards that you want to have on your field during the battle phase. So that's actually very important. So yeah, thanks guys for watching. I hope that this video did help. And I hope that you guys will hate Deletors less. Me, myself, I don't have anything against or with Deletors. I do think that the deck is unfair, and I know how strong the deck is, but I have seen more decks like these. I've seen the Grade 2, a Jewel Knight deck, I have seen the Ripples, I have seen Grade 1 7Cs, I have seen a lot of different kind of decks, and when you know how to play against it, you could win. I don't say that I guarantee you the win, but there are different situations that you play and win against the deck. And it depends on which deck you're playing, you could win. It depends on your playstyle, and it depends on the deck that you're playing. But Deletors, even if they go first, it's not that they have to win. No, there are different ways that you could still win the game. So thanks guys for watching, and till next time.
Crushing the meta.